It's that time of year again to count down the best games of the year because it's the end of the year. 2020 was shit. You know, the world was in lockdown, plus many protests and many stressful things going on. Movies were few and far between. Productions of shows halted. Many things were affected, but video games fared quite well. So unlike many other medias, we got a lot of great video games this year, plus a brand new generation of consoles. So now, let's count down the top 10 best games of 2020. This is my list, one game per franchise, and they have to be brand new games. No re-releases, no remasters. Remakes are allowed if they change up the gameplay or if they seem different enough. But, yeah. Anyways, before I get started, you know what to do. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to turn on notifications, and leave a comment. You'll be a loyal subscriber.
I wanted to give to you, in the last part of your notes here, the significance spiritually of the number 10 in the Bible.
Look, we all know how unpredictable 2020 has been, for better or for much, much worse. That being said, we had no idea we were getting a brand new mainline Crash Bandicoot game until halfway through the year, and that is for the better. Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, wasn't really the talk of the town when it came out, and I heard it actually disappointed sales-wise, at least within its first week or something, and that sucks, cause this game deserves better, and I hear people have been getting a chance to play it more. That's good. It's classic Crash as you remember, with new masks that give you more powers that help you throughout the game. It is also worth noting that this game, even on the easiest difficulty, will kick your ass. And I like how it did that because it feels all the more rewarding when you come out on top. Many levels require a crazy yet fair amount of precision and is no walk in the park. There is also a lot of replay value, meaning you'll have way more to do after you finish the main story. Go check Crash Bandicoot 4 out and don't underestimate its difficulty. What is it with long dormant franchises getting a fourth installment this year? We got Crash, and we got Streets of Rage 4, which is what I'm talking about right now. Now, despite not being around when the series was more alive, I did discover the Streets of Rage games through collections and re-releases, and I fell in love with them, and Streets of Rage 4 feels like a more modern take that still keeps a lot of the retro aspects of the original games intact. It unfortunately came out at a bad time during the pandemic, yeah, but like, especially for this game, as the game had designed 4-player couch co-op, which obviously wasn't possible due to the pandemic, but even getting one other person to play with you, if you're able to do that, is a lot of fun. The art style is a great fit for the game, and while the main story can be beat in probably about 2 hours, it probably would have overstayed its welcome had it honestly gone much longer. There are many cool combos you can do, many cool characters you can play as, and even unlock, like 16-bit art styles for some of the older characters. And overall, you have a great game for only $25, and I'm excited to see what other dormant franchises .mu can revive next.
So I'm going to be giving this flavor 8.5 out of 10 scoops.
Another reason this year was all over the place in every single way is, well, in the midst of all the chaos with the pandemic and everything, a new generation of consoles actually started. Let's take a look at the PS5, and they had a pretty good launch lineup, nothing crazy, but I don't have a PS5, so if you were expecting a game like Demon's Souls, sorry, I guess that gets an honorable mention. However, Spider-Man Miles Morales was a game I was able to play on PS4 and still had fun with. I'm sure the PS5 version is probably the way to play it, but I still had so much fun on the PS4. Spider-Man Miles Morales takes place a year after Spider-Man on PS4 did, and you take control of Miles Morales, who is learning how to be Spider-Man and how to live up to that notion and being more than just the other Spider-Man. And we see many twists and turns along the way, including the villain. Not to mention, the gameplay is almost the same as Spider-Man PS4, which is to say it is fucking awesome and rules, and we also get some new abilities that add a lot to the game. The only thing holding Spider-Man Miles Morales back is its length, as while it didn't overstay its welcome, something that, I mean, as it was advertised, something it kind of did run the risk of doing, at least in my opinion, it kind of actually understayed its welcome. Otherwise, it could have even cracked the top 5.
36.
Very close, but that's not it. Let's go to Gary the Retard. What number between 2 and 4?
7.
Look, I'd honestly like to stop commenting about how crazy 2020 was for each entry, which is what I have been doing, but due to how crazy this year has been, did you remember that Ori and the Will the Wisps actually came out this year? I understand why you wouldn't, cause it came out right before the world got set on fire, but it got forgotten and then snubbed from a lot of things, like a lot of best of the year lists and even mostly the game awards, but not from me. Wow, does Ori and the Will the Wisps look absolutely gorgeous. I think this might have the best art style, either this or a game later on. The atmosphere you are in when playing this game is honestly beautiful. And also look at this game. Do you think nice and smooth action and combat? Probably not, but that is what you get, and then some. Whether it be a torch or a stick light thingy that you use for the rest of the game, it allows for some nice action and combat in a game that doesn't seem like it even needs it. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is one fantastic game, and one you shouldn't forget about any further.
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
Yeah, about making comments about how crazy 2020 was, I guess it's the one per list. In a year that felt like hell, you see where I'm going here? We got to rip and tear inside of hell. Have you caught on yet? I'm of course talking about Doom Eternal. Doom 2016 was absolutely amazing, and Eternal had to live up to that game, but it does so and then some, exceeding the first one in almost every single way. First off, the soundtrack is a step up from the already slapping soundtrack of the 2016 game. Also, the gameplay mechanics are better this time around too. Ripping and tearing through enemies is still so much fun, and the new parkour mechanics are a nice addition. The bosses also seem like they should be nowhere near this game, but they are, and it just works. Doom Eternal is just one hell of a game. See what I did there?
Chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Okay, after years of anticipation, Cyberpunk 2077 is finally here to take over the world, kill the pandemic, blow literally every single video game in existence out of the water, and it was supposed to play CD Projekt Red with a bunch of gods, except it came out all buggy and glitchy. Textures take forever to load, certain things come out as squares, characters talk over each other, meaning you miss certain important dialogue, so you have to go back to a different save to hear it, and it crashes a lot. Not that much for me though, so I still had fun with it. I've said this a lot, and I'm kind of sick of saying it, but I had a smoother experience on PS4 than I see many others saying they did. So my opinion is very different, as I was able to look past those bugs and be able to enjoy the game. And enjoy the game I did. There is so much good about Cyberpunk 2077. The characters, the story, the atmosphere of Night City when, you know, it's not glitching out, the combat, there is just so much to love about this game. It's hard to recommend it because what CD Projekt Red did and the fast one they try to pull on you does not need to be defended at all, does not deserve that. But hopefully you will all give this game a second chance when the game is more patched up, so you can experience all the true highs of Cyberpunk 2077. Here is another mention of how crazy the year 2020 was. Before this entry, I have no choice. 2020 had the pandemic, of course, and at the start, it was rather unprecedented and unexpected, and we weren't really allowed to go outside and interact with the world like how we usually like to. And that is why Animal Crossing New Horizons was an escape for so many people, as it's sort of a more fictional life simulator. Honestly, look at that. Animal Crossing New Horizons came out at the exact right time, at the start of the pandemic, and there is so much to do, even if you weren't stuck at home. Making your own island, getting materials to craft, crafting the materials, doing normal activities like fishing, digging up fossils, catching tarantulas. Okay, maybe you don't do that on your spare time, but they all bring a big sense of joy to the game. Also, the constant and monthly updates add so much life to the game. I played Animal Crossing New Horizons a lot within its first month, but put it down because I wanted to move on. You know, there's Final Fantasy VII and some other games that are coming out, so I wanted to play some other games. However, turn the game back on in a couple of months later, and the game is just as fun, and I was still sucked away just as much as I was when I first started playing. There is an infinite amount of fun to be had in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Unless you play multiplayer. That's what's keeping it from any higher. Now, Greek myths have always been fascinating to me. Now, want to hear an idea that sounds stupid? Take all the Greek gods and make them hot? You get Hades. Hades, in my opinion, is the best roguelike game, or at least up there with like top 3 in existence, which is already a genre that is pretty hit or miss for me personally. I mean, I like Dead Cells, I like Binding of Isaac and Rogue Legacy. That's it. All I can think of, at least. However, the combat and compelling story in Hades, the story of which is told in a very linear way in a not so linear game, all make Hades worth playing. And yes, the narrative is super compelling and quite deep for a roguelike game, if you ask me. Not to mention, the voice acting in this game might be better than some of the best animated movies I've seen this year. The combat and the action in this game are all tight, and there are cool upgrades that can help you come up with certain combos in order to help you defeat enemies. Hades is just one game that if you have the Epic Game Store or a Switch, you must check this game out.
Pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
Last year, on my list of the best games of the year, Resident Evil 2 Remake placed at number 1, because it just showed how good and how different a remake can be from its original counterpart. And I don't usually put remakes on lists like this, but thanks to that one, I make some exceptions. Well, the Final Fantasy VII Remake did that same thing and then some. First off, Final Fantasy VII Remake is more of an action RPG, making it more accessible for everyone, so take that for what you will. And that being said, it works very well over Final Fantasy VII. Also, One thing that was a little worrying was that this is a remake of only the Midgar section in the original Final Fantasy VII, which was about 25% of the original game. But this game manages to prolong that section, but not in a way to drag it out to the point where it is noticeable. We get to see more of certain characters like Jesse, Biggs, Wedge, as well as new boss fights like Roche, which was actually a very fun addition to the game. Now throw that in with the ending, which, say what you want about it, I know not everyone liked it, but it is a very interesting and bold direction they went with, and I am stoked to see what part 2 gives us. Before we get to number 1, and before we even get to our honorable mentions, I very rarely do a special mention, but Among Us didn't really come out this year, but it got massively popular and technically didn't exist before this year, so it might as well have come out this year. But had I included it on this list, it would have been taking up a spot to a game that by default was more deserving of it, because that game actually came out this year, this one didn't. However, if it did come out this year, it would have definitely made the list, maybe even cracked the top 5, so it gets my special mention. Now, let's get to our honorable mentions.
I'm Luigi, number 1.
The PS4 had a great run with exclusives, blowing the Xbox One way out of the goddamn water, whether we're talking about God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, SpiderMan, Persona 5, or some might even say The Last of Us Part 2. Not me though, but still. Which is why Ghost of Tsushima is the perfect swan song for the PS4. Ghost of Tsushima is an incredible and replayable game with a great narrative and compelling characters with action and combat that is so unique and, ready to hear it, makes you feel like a samurai. Okay, I'd never heard that one before, but it's still cliche. Plus, the story is really fucking good as you follow Jin Sakai and you see certain struggles he goes through on his journey. There are certain boss fights that are so much fun, and times where you fight multiple enemies where it feels like a boss fight, and it is so much fun. Also, that ending, holy shit, the decision you have to make, whether it be you do the right thing or the wrong thing, is up to you. Like, do you think it's the right thing, or do you think it's the wrong thing? So technically, what is the good ending or the bad ending is kind of up to you. Not to mention the multiplayer update, and you got Ghost of Tsushima, the #1 best game of 2020. So that was my list of the top 10 best games of 2020. Do you agree with me? Is there any games I left out? I know there are quite a few that I left out. You probably noticed honorable mentions like Tony Hawk or Demon Souls or Half-Life Alyx or whatever. I haven't played those games, so I can't really put them on this list. However, let me know what you guys think. Your top 10, top 5, top 1. This is my last video of the year, so hopefully you enjoyed this video and hopefully you enjoyed me making content. I'll be back with a DPX Direct telling you what to expect in 2021. See you guys.